Did the Associated Press report intricate details about the Navy Yard shooting a day before it happened? This is an Associated Press article about Monday's shooting, but if you see the timestamp, it says Sunday 15th of September, a whole day before the actual shooting took place. And here we have ABC News again reposting an AP story about the shooting on Monday, but the timestamp says September 15th, which was the Sunday, the day before the shooting actually happened. So is this proof of a dastardly conspiracy where the Associated Press has intricate details of a shooting that had not yet occurred and released them to that mighty insider media publication, the Cologne Daily Courier? Or is the explanation simply that the timestamp on the article is inaccurate, is incorrect? Well, let's take the ABC News post, for example, which was a repost with an article and a video originally out of AP, September 15th, which was the Sunday the day before. Well, if you go up to the top of the page and see the URL, it's actually, the original URL was a story about a fire in northeast Ohio which killed children. So what ABC News have done is simply upload the story about the Navy Yard shooting over this original URL. And then if you go and search for this original story about the fire in northeast Ohio, it's an Associated Press article from September 15th, which is when the incident happened on Sunday morning. So this ABC News piece originally was about the northeast Ohio fire. You can see that by the URL, which I've just shown you. That's why it says September 15th, not because they had advance word of every single intricate detail, including video footage that actually took place on Monday, and then for some unexplained reason released it a day early as part of some giant conspiracy. The real explanation is actually very mundane indeed. Yet again and again after major events, we see the hardcore conspiracy crowd focus on disinfo rabbit holes that are easily disproven, making serious researchers of actual government cover-ups and corruption look ridiculous. It allows the mainstream media to demonize everybody, lump them in together as, tinfoil hat wearing kooks, because a lot of the attention is focused on these absolute non-issues. I mean, this video about this complete non-story, which is easily debunked, has already got 26,000 views just since yesterday. And I can imagine my email inbox is flooded with this non-story. So I can imagine that's just the tip of the iceberg. So while the attention for thousands of people is focused on this non-story, actual real questions about real issues such as, was the gunman on antidepressant medication, as I highlighted in my article this morning, proven link to mass shootings? In 90% of school shootings, there's a link between SSRI drugs and massacres. Yet nobody's talking about that in many circles. They're talking about some ridiculous thing about the AP reporting the shooting the day before it happened, which is actually a timestamp error, as I just showed you. People are not talking about, his obsession with video games, what role that had to play in the shooting. They're not talking about the White House spokesman Carney now saying that Obama is set to implement executive actions on gun control as a result of this incident, even though gun homicides since 1993 are down by 49%. People are not talking about that. And that's why we lose a lot of these arguments, because a huge section of the people that are obsessive about these kind of issues get lost down these rabbit holes of disinformation. And here it is again in another video with 11,000 views. They claim that because this Google link, this Google search that comes up as the CNN breaking news video URL, because it contains details of the Navy Yard shooting in the description there, yet says 3 days ago that is somehow damning evidence that CNN got word that a shooting was going to happen 3 days beforehand and somehow accidentally released it on the internet. Well, go and search CNN video right now. It will say 3 days ago. This is a Google cache. The 3 days ago is the title description for the URL. That's when it was last updated. Yet this text is updated constantly. And I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so I just did a search for CNN video. Lo and behold, 3 days ago. It always says 3 days ago for that particular search. Try it for yourself. It's a timestamp issue. The 3 days ago has not been updated. It's not evidence that they planned the shooting 3 days in advance and somehow, for an unexplained reason, which nobody seems to know about, then released it on the internet only for conspiracy theorists to know about. Let's focus on the real issues. The SSRI drugs and their link with every mass shooting. We know that Aaron Alexis was having treatment for post-traumatic stress disorder. The most common drug prescribed for that, of course, is a form of SSRI, paroxetine, which is also listed by the Institute for Safe Medication Practices as number 3 on the top 10 list of SSRI drugs that are likely to cause violent outbursts. That's a major issue that the media never wants to talk about because they want to focus all the propaganda on gun control, even though gun homicides in the United States are down by 49% since 1993. So this is what we need to look at. We also need to ask questions about whether the fact that Aaron Alexis played Call of Duty for 16 hours a day has anything to do with his deadly rampage. Now, I know that many people see video games now as a kind of religion, and to dare question them and even suggest that they might have any link to violence is an insult to many people, and I'll get a lot of crap in the comments merely for saying that. But it's a question that needs to be asked, just as the link to SSRI drugs needs to be highlighted. Now, I'm not saying that we should automatically dismiss questions about the official narrative about anything. We know that government lies habitually, and certainly with the Boston bombings, there were many, many legitimate questions about that incident which still continue to be asked. But let's ask the right questions. You know, original reports of multiple shooters. That's normally the case. People say there's confusion with breaking news. It always ends up being a lone gunman. That's a question worthy of asking. You know, why was the Washington Post reporting quite insistent that there were 3 shooters and that eventually turned out to be a lone gunman? It's an important question. But I think the danger that I see developing is, you know, we've got an army of people out there who will blithely, unquestionably accept the official narrative as truth gospel from the mainstream media. They won't question it. But then on the flip side, there are a hardcore minority of people who will unquestionably accept every single conspiracy theory about an event without even thinking about it for 30 seconds. I mean, this is so obviously a timestamp error issue. Either you believe that it was a timestamp error, or you believe that the Kellogg Journal was handed intricate details about a shooting that would happen the next day by the Associated Press and made the mistake of putting the wrong date on the article. You know, if this came out the day before by mistake, everybody would be saying, why are you reporting there's a shooting at the Washington Navy Yard when nothing's happened? Again, that's another point that debunks it. But it's a timestamp error. So we've got an army of people who believe everything the mainstream says, then we've got an army of people who believe everything that conspiracy theorists say. Whereas the truth often lies somewhere in the middle. So let's concentrate on the important issues, the genuine questions that need to be asked about these kind of incidents. Gun control, of course, they're linked to SSRI drugs, potential link to video games. Those are all meat and potatoes issues that we can really get our teeth into. This isn't. This is easily debunked, yet people spend hours and hours obsessing about it, even though it's very easily explained. And then the establishment later uses it to demonize anybody who asks questions about these kind of events by saying, well, you believe this, that's patently ridiculous, therefore any other questions you have that disagree with the official narrative are obviously bogus. So again, let's concentrate on the real issues. Don't believe what I say, don't believe what the mainstream media says, don't believe what conspiracy theorists, this form of them, say about, timestamps and crisis actors. Question everything means question everything. Don't just question the establishment, question the so-called conspiracy theories. And try and focus on the real issues. This is Paul Joseph Watson reporting for Infowars.com.